Do you have a dream or a manifestation that you want to bring into your life? But there's this nagging thought in the back of your mind of, how will my friends react? What will my family say? Well, that's what we're going to be dissecting here today, about how do we bring our friends and family along for the glorious ride on our journey towards destination manifestation.
Yeah, take a step back for the ones who can't do that. Hope I separate from my past.
We are back. We are back. Oh, back. Why I'm grimacing right now to the word back is I tweaked my back working out. See, this is why I don't work out. That is negative thoughts. I reverse. I did not say that. No, I started a new workout routine and I tweaked my back. And so thank God I could just sit here for, X amount of time for this episode and just talk to y'all, because walking is proving to be a little difficult. But hey, these are the things we encounter on our journey towards destination manifestation, which is exactly what we're doing here today. By the way, if you're brand new, I'm Brittany Hoops. I'm your host. If you're already subscribed to the show, thank you so much. I like to think of this podcast as kind of the podcast you would listen to if you were taking a road trip towards your dreams, your destination manifestation. What would you listen to on the journey? I would hope that it would be this. So thank you for subscribing. And if you haven't already, guess what? It's not too late. You can subscribe whenever you want. You have not missed out. You can do so right now if you wanted to. And I would urge you to do it because it's a pretty doggone awesome show, at least in my opinion. And this is episode 5. So you're still early. And today we're answering a very important question that I've received, which is, how will receiving my manifestations, and of course, all the inevitable changes that manifestation may bring to my life, to me as a person. And when I say me, I mean, I'm speaking for the collective us. How will that manifestation impact my friends and my family? This can be a fear sometimes that we have, that it's like, oh, well, I want this dream, but at what cost? Or we think there is a cost. There may or may not be a cost. That's for us to weigh and decide and dissect here today. I'm going to walk you through some different ways to think about this. We can weigh these pros and these cons and how you might be able to navigate others' reactions to your manifestations so that you don't have to pick one or the other. I mean, that's the worst case scenario, right? Having to pick one or the other. We want to have it so that you can get what you want, have what you want, and keyword and have happy and harmonious relationships, because you shouldn't have to pick between your dreams and your favorite people. I'm a big believer that you can have it all. I really do. You got to find the energetic alignment to all that you want to have. And that can be tricky sometimes, but it's there. There's a timeline there where it all exists. You just got to find it. Ideally, in most situations, our favorite people would support our dreams. And if you are lucky enough that everybody is supporting your manifestations, congratulations. Graduate to episode 6, which is the episode that will either come out right after this one, or if you're listening to this later, has already come out. This might not be the episode for you. Some of us still find ourselves, though, feeling like we have to pick or choose between our friends and our family or this dream. It isn't always the case. So sometimes we need some help navigating that. And I'm going to show you how to do that here today. First of all, let's just kind of lay a foundation for what we're talking about here. What do we know about manifestation? Well, we know manifestations bring change to your outer circumstances, right? That's the idea behind manifestation. There's a current 3D reality around you that you live in, known as your life, your outer circumstances around you. And there's something you want to change, either about this 3D reality or change about yourself and how you feel, right? This is something you want to manifest. Change is inevitable. It is a key component of manifestation. Now, oftentimes society sort of demonizes change. And I won't say that that's necessarily, I mean, it can be us too. We're part of society as well. I will say, if you're listening to this podcast, you like manifestation, which means you are wanting a positive change in your life. So you're probably more open-minded to change than, say, your average Joe or Jane. But as a society, we oftentimes demonize change, but we have to remember that growth is change too. I think why a lot of people hate change, resist change, is because change can feel uncertain. You have something as it is. You know what to expect with that. Good or bad, you know what it is. It's identified by you. But change, for many people, all of a sudden takes that somewhat certain thing and makes it a question mark. But here's the thing. When we deliberately manifest change, and even before that change manifests, we practice that change in a state of hypnosis, we know exactly what change we're getting. Change is only uncertain when you're not aware of your thoughts. And this is why I think most of society, because unfortunately most of society hasn't quite caught up to quantum mechanics and manifestation and the law of attraction. That isn't, it's gaining traction, but it's not like the dominant, belief system, right? I don't even know if I can call it belief system. I guess you do have to believe in it for it to work for you, in a positive way anyways. But manifestation isn't the dominant, school of thought in society yet. I could see how change would be very scary if you didn't know how your thoughts worked and what role that they played, because then you're reacting to what's around you, what's already been created, rather than responding and creating them yourself. Change is only uncertain when you're not aware of the power of your thoughts. And that's why I love hypnosis. One of the many reasons why I love hypnosis and mental visualization, because we literally get to put our brains to work. It's like, do you remember when you would go to school? It's at the end of the summer and you're preparing to go to school and you have an open house, right, at school. And you get to meet your teachers. You get to find your locker. Maybe you run down your class schedule. It's all this preparation for the change of the new school year. And you do all that preparation so that you feel comfortable and you feel ready to come in for the first day of school, and you know what you're doing and you have your books and you know where you're going to sit at lunch, right? Like you have all these things planned out. Hypnosis is kind of that same thing for your brain. It helps you practice change. By the time you manifest these changes in real life, you've acclimated to their frequency already when you were doing your hypnosis. Sure, there's a change in your physical reality, but it's a change you're already acclimated to and you're used to on an energetic level. And that's why I usually say that by the time you manifest something, it's just going to feel like, well, of course. Like the attitude, like once it's actually in your 3D reality, it's like, yeah, you kind of almost forget that you ever doubted it in the first place. That's what it feels like to acclimate to that frequency. You've rehearsed it so many times that by the time it's like in your real reality, you're kind of on to the next thing. Like it's kind of already a given for you. You're always sort of one step ahead. Now, please celebrate it, enjoy it. You hit the goal, you hit the milestone. Like don't take that lightly. But in order to be at the frequency that's going to manifest it, the belief has to be there, and therefore you're already acclimated to it. But again, I'm talking to you. And you're listening to me. We like manifestation. We have a higher tolerance than I would say most people do for change. We're excited by change. But what about those other people who don't? And what if we really love them? And what if we want them in our lives because they're our mom or they're our dad or they're our brother or sister or our best friend? Like, how do we navigate this? This is what we're going to dissect here today. So here are several things to consider when you're contemplating what kind of impact your manifestations may have on your friends and your family. Number 1, determine what you want most. Now, ultimately, it is all up to you. You are the boss of you. You're the boss of your life. You are the creator of your own reality. If you want this manifestation, even though everyone in your life is screaming and kicking and trying to convince you that it's a bad idea and that they don't want this for your reality, you still get to make that choice. You are the only one in charge of your life. And to think any differently about that is to give away your own personal power. Where might you be giving your own power away because you're adopting the thoughts of others? However, your friends and your family may be very important to you. They probably are. And if they've expressed concerns to you, especially if you have good, healthy relationships with them, where you really value their opinion and you know that they're looking out for you, you might genuinely want to consider what they have to say. But the key is to recognize that anything they share with you is a thought they are having about your manifestation. It's their thought about your manifestation. It's not your thought about your manifestation. It's their thought about your manifestation. And then you get to decide if you want to adopt that thought as well. It's kind of like if you were shopping in a clothing store, which, oh my gosh, I feel like this metaphor is a little outdated. Does anyone go to stores anymore? Do we try on clothes? What has happened? I know I don't go to stores anymore, but remember the old days where we used to go to clothing stores and try on clothes. Okay. And so you go to a clothing store and you try an outfit on that you want to try on. And the person that's working in the store might be like, oh, if you like this pair of pants, you might like this other pair of pants too. It's a similar color. And so maybe you say, sure, why not? I'll try it on. Or maybe you try it on and then you decide, not really for me, right? Or maybe you merely just say, no, thanks. I just want to try on this original pair of pants. I don't need another one, because you have no desire for it. Or maybe you try on the pair of pants and you're like, oh my gosh, I like these even better than the first pair. Thank goodness I listened to her. You get to decide. It's the same with you and your thoughts. Do you want to put on that thought that your friend or your family member is offering you? And I like that visual of kind of like trying on thoughts, like we try on clothes. So say they have a thought about your manifestation, whether it's positive or negative. Try on that thought. Does it fit? Does it make you look in the mirror and you think, yeah, I am that girl, you're feeling yourself? Or does it feel like maybe somebody else would wear that, not you? We've all put on clothes before that we're like, oh my gosh, so-and-so could pull this off, but this is not me. Like, this is not my style. Does it feel stuffy? Does the thought feel too tight? Is it constricting? Is it just downright ugly? Have you ever tried on a piece of clothing that a friend or your mom found and they're like, this would look so good on you, Brittany? And you kind of like wrinkled your nose at it first, but then you put it on and you loved it. I mean, sometimes our friends and family, they have that outer perspective. They can sometimes see something in us that we don't see. And so trying on thoughts like clothes can be helpful. If you try on their thought about your manifestation, you might find value in it. Or you might say, okay, that's your thought about it. I am not choosing to adopt and wear that thought in my brain. Ultimately, it comes down to what feels best to you. That's going to be your sign if you are in energetic alignment. They may not be in alignment with your manifestation, but guess what? It's not their manifestation. They don't have to be, but you do if you're going to manifest it. Number 2, ask yourself, this thought that my family member or my friend is sharing with me, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a place of genuine concern for me and my well-being? Or is it purely self-serving for them? They might not be meaning to do this. And I think that can like trip us up sometimes. They might think they're being well-meaning, but actually it's self-serving. And that's for you to sort of suss out. You have to ask yourself, what fuels this thought for them? Is this thought fueled by love? Or is it fueled by their own fear? And they might not even see it. We see this oftentimes with parents, right? Many parents, they want so desperately what is best for their kids. They don't want their kids to suffer or to have to go through strife. And so your dream might feel very scary to them. They might not think that the risk you'd be taking on is worth it. But I will tell you, I have seen time and time and time again with my one-on-one hypnotherapy and coaching clients, where if we take other people's thoughts, which are just opinions, and we treat them like capital T truth, we just end up inheriting their fear. We inherit their blocks. And it can sometimes take a long, long time for us to realize that their fear may not have actually been fact, but just their opinion. Something that felt very real, that may have defined the whole trajectory of your own life, ends up it was just an illusion that they created, but that you adopted. Again, this is like trying on the thought without having that sense of awareness of whether or not you want to. You just sort of was like, well, this is the clothes that I have to wear because someone close to me gave these clothes. I have to wear this even though it doesn't fit. We have to sift true fact from opinion. Not all thoughts are created equal. There are two sort of fundamental types of thoughts, facts and opinions. Now, facts, they can be upheld in the court of law. What can be submitted as evidence? That's a good fact, right? How you know something is a fact is if every single person on this earth agreed. We could all agree on it. Now, opinions are pretty much everything else, okay? Facts just exist out in the world, and then we have opinions, which are thoughts, about them. A family member saying, that's too risky. That's an example of an opinion. Now, a family member says, I've read the terms of your loan, and it will take you 10 years to pay off this loan if you pay the recommended amounts each month. That would be a fact. If you did pay the recommended amounts each month or the required amounts each month, it may take you 10 years, assuming that they read that contract correctly. Okay. That could be a fact. Saying that's too risky or you can't do that or would be opinion. You might even be able to pay more each month than what is the, required amount. These thoughts your loved ones have about your manifestation, they are offering you facts or they're offering you their opinions. Now, it doesn't mean that opinions, you don't listen to opinions, but just realize what they are. That means they're fungible, they're flexible. You get to decide if you want to adopt those or not. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're true. Only facts are true. Opinions, you get to decide what is true for you. Opinions, you get to decide if you want to adopt and try that on as your own. Here's another thing that's helpful to sift fact from fiction. Their reaction about your manifestation. And so I always ask my clients, what exactly did they say? Like, tell me word for word. What did your brother say? What did your best friend say to you? Like, read me the text, right? I want to know exactly what they said. The exact words of what they said, that's the fact. Their exact words. Anything else, maybe a story that you're telling yourself about it. Here's the kicker. Maybe they haven't even said anything at all yet about your manifestation. Maybe the fact is silence. And you've created a story in your head about how you think they will react. Again, that story is not fact. I'll tell you, once I made up a huge story about how my family members would react to a big decision that I was going to make. Oh, I will tell you, I really built up their reaction so huge in my mind. I mean, I really was just in the thick of that story. It made me sick, like physically ill. I remember I manifested breaking my foot during that period of time in my life, and it was very much connected to this scenario. It was bad. Okay, this was many years ago. I was living in the story. I was all wrapped up in my imaginary story, and yet they haven't said anything about it because I hadn't told them what that decision was. But it felt very real to me. I was certain in my mind that this is how they would react. But then when I finally did decide to move forward and tell them about that decision, they were mostly very supportive and understanding. A complete 180 from the story I had been telling myself in my head. It was all just story, just my own projected opinion. So check your facts, folks. Check your facts. What did they say? Have they even said anything at all? Have you had a conversation with them about it? Okay, sure, maybe you have. Maybe they've expressed opinions like, don't do that. Don't do that is not a fact. It is their opinion. You get to decide what you want to make that mean. Make sure your stories aren't the ones causing you strife. You could be creating unnecessary blocks for yourself and your manifestation that way. Number 3, the best relationships are born from people who can grow together. Growth is a form of change, and we know that manifestation brings on change. It brings on growth. When we manifest, we're deliberately changing. So if this person in your life is afraid of your growth, is afraid of your change, how do you expect your relationship with them to flourish, both with this manifestation or without it? I think about this all the time. My husband, his name is Steven. We have been together for 13 years total, 6 married. Remember, I figured that out on last episode. But 13 years total. And we have lived so many freaking different lives together. Like, I swear we're like different people. Like every couple years, we're just a completely different life that we live together. I mean, he met me with that when I was still an actress, fresh out of NYU. He was like an economist. We've lived in New York together. We've lived in LA together. We've lived here in Texas together. Like, we've changed so much, but here's the thing. We've grown and changed together in the same direction together. And so when you have someone in your life who is scared about your manifestation, they're not so much scared about how you will change. They're more scared about how they might change based on those changes that are happening in your life. Their reality might change based on their own shifting thoughts about the changes in you. Right now, they're thinking, I love her and like her based on how you currently are. If you change and their thinking is reactionary to what they see around them, they might change their thought about you, which would change their own reality. What they really need to learn is the power of their own thoughts, and that they get to determine what they think, whether or not you change or not. Does that make sense? That's not the kind of work that you can do for them, though. That's their own work. Number 4, the best relationships are people who support your definition of happiness for your life, not their own. Now, I don't mean this like that your happiness has to be their happiness. No, your happiness is your happiness, and they realize their happiness is their happiness, and that those two happinesses are separate. They recognize that it's your life. They may not have decided to do it themselves or want that manifestation, but they recognize that if it makes you happy, it will make them happy too. And here's how that works, right? They look at you with your manifestation, and then they think the thought, she's happy. And that thought, we know thoughts create emotions within us. That thought creates happiness within them. Now, let me ask you this. Do you want someone in your life that when they think the thought, she's happy, they feel any differently? Do you want somebody when they think the thought, she's happy, they start feeling angry or jealous or sad? I mean, yikes. Like, I don't know if that's a healthy relationship. If that's the kind of emotional reaction they're going to have when they think, oh, she's happy, which is how they might be thinking if your manifestation came true, your dream came true. You know, it's so interesting. I always think about this example. It was the first thing that my dad said to me when I told him I had made it onto Big Brother. I was going to be a house guest in the upcoming season of Big Brother. I said, Dad, I got on Big Brother. I was all excited, right? And then he said to me, I would never do that show, but I know it's a dream of yours. Okay. The delivery was like really lacking. You know, it kind of made me roll my eyes a little bit. I'm like, okay. But I think I understood in that moment what he was meaning. And of course, his excitement came later when he got totally enveloped in BB and was listening to all the podcasts and watching the live feeds and totally being the biggest supporter and cheerleader ever of me on the show. So he found his excitement later, but the message he was sharing was there. And the message was, this is not my dream, but you are not me. This is your dream, and this makes you happy. Therefore, I am happy for you. And that's support. At its core, that's what support is. And healthy relationships typically involve people who are going to feel happiness when they witness your happiness. And if it doesn't, there might be something more you want to examine in this relationship and how it's serving you in your life, which is a whole other episode. Number 5, when we get on the frequency of our desires, the people in our lives shift to match that frequency. Ooh, now I love this. Think about this right now. You're living your life here right now, right? You got a life. I got one too. Congrats. Have you ever considered how the people who are currently in your life, how they are matching your current frequency? Interesting. Or they're showing up in certain ways that match your frequency. So let's just say you come into full alignment with your desire, with your manifestation. What might happen to the people around you? Well, there's several different things that could happen. 1, new people may come into your life. You manifest new people into your life. That's what I loved about having a podcast 5 years ago, is all the cool people I met, people that I had guests on the shows. I got to meet some of my favorite authors. Same thing with Big Brother. I mean, how cool was that? Now, Big Brother's an interesting idea. Because of course you manifest getting on the show and you manifest being in that particular season, and that brings together, the universe brings together, and the casting directors through the universe bring together a certain, group of people. I will say once you're in the house, it's very hard, at least it was for me. It was very hard to maintain my energetic alignment, to stay in a good, positive place. The Big Brother house is not designed for kumbaya positivity, right? It is reality TV. It's designed for drama, and drama is very low vibe. So it was very hard. I mean, if you watch the live feeds, you saw me. I would usually spend 1-2 hours a day. I don't know, it felt like that. Maybe it wasn't quite that long, but doing my own self-hypnosis to try to elevate my vibration, to try to get in a high vibe place. I didn't feel like myself because I didn't have all these tools that I usually would use. If I want to increase my vibration, a lot of times I would listen to hypnosis audio. I didn't have access to that in the house. I would talk to a good friend or family member, that would help me feel better and raise my vibration. Didn't have that in the house. I'd go for a walk around my neighborhood. Didn't have that, right? It's designed to strip you of all these tools to help elevate your vibration. Very difficult. I'm surprised I made it as long as I did, considering how low vibe I was in that house. What's really interesting, though, is once you get back out into the real world, I can't speak for anybody else other than myself, but once you get back out in the real world, I had all my tools again. I got to be doing what I love again. I'm in a higher vibration place. You start to notice the people shift yet again. Some people fall away. You don't ever really talk to them again. They're not matching the frequency that you're at. And I'm not saying like I'm at this perfect frequency and they're not. No, we're just at different frequencies, and that's okay. That's how humans work. That is all right. Right? I noticed that some people still match my frequency and we're still great friends. We talk every day. Other people didn't match my frequency in the house, but now they do. And now they're a part of my life. And I really love that. It's all over the place, right? So it's like there's this recalibration of frequencies and matching even once you leave an experience too, which can attract or detract people from in and out of your life. That's how the universe works, right? That's okay. When we start saying that this is bad and we make it a problem is when we start causing issues and blocks for ourselves. This is just how it works. The shifting of the puzzle pieces of the universe based on the frequency you're emitting. And that's what I mean, that other people may fade from your life. This can be the biggest scare that's keeping people from making positive changes in their lives because they fear that they'll lose someone close to them. And I don't mean like lose like in death. Like I just mean like people come into your life, people come out of your life. Loss can be in so many different ways. A lot of times it manifests itself as just drifting, further away, not being as close to that person. I'll say when I got on the frequency of being my own business owner, really believing in myself despite what others were saying around me, I lost some friends who had not supported my dreams, who thought poorly on what I did. They didn't think being a hypnotist, like they didn't believe in hypnosis, or they thought, I was trying to be like a therapist, even though I'm clearly not a therapist. They didn't believe in what I was doing, who I was becoming. And therefore, our frequencies no longer matched. They no longer resonated with who I had become. And I no longer resonated with who they stayed as being, right? That series of events made sense. Again, this isn't like a thinking that you're holier than thou. No, whatever frequency you're at is okay. It's just, is it the frequency you want to be at? That's the question. All of it is okay. Relationships are living things. They're born, they grow, they shift, they change, they fade too. It doesn't negate what they were. It doesn't negate the purpose that they served in that moment. I mean, it's just actually so beautiful to think like two people can come together and they can be at the same frequency for however long that lasts. And then that can shift and they can fade. And that is okay. It's like do-si-doing. Is that do-si-do? I don't know my dances, but like, when you're like going around and you have different dance partners and then you circle off to the next cowboy or whatever, right? Like that's okay. It's a dance. That's how it works. It's kind of like life support. If somebody's on life support, do you want to be on life support forever? And if you are you alive? Or are you just being kept artificially alive? Which actually might be prolonging your suffering. Now, we're not going to get into all that. That's a whole other debate, right? But it's like, do you want these relationships to be on life support, or do you want them to be able to breathe at the frequency in which they are, at which you are and they are, honoring both of those frequencies? Both are okay, even if they don't match anymore. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who have stayed in relationships that they know are no longer serving them, that they know are keeping them small, keeping them the same, that are not in energetic alignment with who they want to be in their dreams, but because they just fear losing that person, because they rather have something that's bad, that's known. Again, we're talking about that certainty thing, right? Bad, that's certain. Rather than having something that new, that could be good, but also could be bad, but it's a big question mark right now. Or the fear that they'll have no one. Notice how these are all thoughts. But imagine what you might be able to attract into your life if you held the thought, if you tried on the thought, I trust that I'll have the support I need with this. I mean, think about that in your manifestation. Think of your manifestation here right now. And then think, I trust that I'll have the support I need with this. That could take so many different forms. That could be new people coming into your life. That could be some people leaving your life in this way if they're not supportive. It could also be the third thing, which is keeping the same people, having those same true, solid connections, but they respond differently to you now because you're on a different frequency. Just because you're altering your energetic state, the frequency in which you're thinking, doesn't mean that that person will necessarily like leave your life altogether. Now, I love this story. I had this client. She came to me to work on over drinking. She didn't like her relationship with alcohol. But even though that's what we were working on, her relationship with her husband drastically improved at the same time. A completely unrelated and disconnected benefit, but a change. And we understand why from an energetic level. She was showing up without the alcohol on a higher and clearer frequency. Cutting out that substance for her had been, a substance that had been quite low vibe for her. She was feeling really good about herself, about her life, about what she was capable of. And this husband that existed in her orbit, that lived with her, he started to match her new higher frequency. And the fights that they used to have, which actually, you would be surprised by this, but usually the fights were very unrelated to her drinking. Did not actually have to do, most of the time it happened when they were sober, honestly. And that's why she drank, they had fights completely unrelated to her drinking. I mean, of course, he was certainly happy that she was getting help for this, but those fights stopped too. Not a single thing was different about her other than her frequency, and it completely transformed their relationship for the better. These are all things I want you to consider as you're thinking about that particular friend, that particular family member, whoever it might be, teacher, mentor, coach, whoever, that has expressed their thoughts, their opinions about your dreams. So thank you so much, Destination Manifestation Travelers. Thank you for joining us on this jaunt, this segment of our journey here today. If you haven't done already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast because next week we're tackling what do you do if you're feeling a little delulu about your manifestations? Here's what I mean. If you're thinking, what if I put all this time, this effort, this energy into manifesting my dreams and it doesn't work? Is my head just in the clouds? Am I delusional? Like, am I just cray cray because I'm doing this? I think at some point in time, many of us have had this thought, especially we're in the thick of pursuing a big, huge, juicy manifestation. We question ourselves. Let's talk about what we do when that comes up. And the one other thing I want you to do after listening to this episode is this. Head on over to BrittanyHoops.com/podcast. I'll link to it in the show notes. And I want you to scroll down, and about halfway down that page, there's a section where I have a button that you can record a question to be included on the podcast. Yeah. We'll hear your voice. We'll hear your question. That's right. If you have questions about how to manifest your dreams, record them for me there, and I may select your question to be featured on an upcoming episode. And while you're on that page, there's lots of goodies that you might like. You'll find top destination manifestation episodes. You'll find show notes. There's a free hypnosis download there. I want this podcast, how I designed it, what it's intended to feel like is like a conversation. Now, I know when I'm talking at you, it feels very one-sided, but I hope you're answering me in your head as we talk. Because we have this feature where we can include your actual questions, I think this will really help you all become part of the show so that I can best serve you. That's what I'm excited about. So submit your question and we'll coach on it. I hope this podcast helped you. I hope you're able to take some of these things that we talked about today and come up with a plan so that next time you talk to a family member, a friend, you can formulate a life where you still get to achieve your manifestations and you can have those healthy relationships too. All music for this podcast is by A Cubed, and I'll catch you next time.